studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Joining me now is Lee Kuan Yew, as Singapore's founding father. He served as Prime Minister for more than 30 years until 1990. He now serves as a minister mentor to the current Prime Minister, his son. I am pleased to have him back on this program. Several years ago, we recorded an hour program at Harvard where he was being honored, and we got such a remarkable response that I am pleased to have him back to talk about how he sees the world and especially how he sees his region. But let's begin talking about the world. The most important issue facing an American president, I suspect, is the battle against terror and national security. What would you tell the president or the next president we need to do?
I think it's not just he who is facing this problem of terror. We are all facing it. I'm facing it in Singapore. We got to understand what this is all about. It's not about Fallujah or Iraq or Beslan. This thing has been in the brew for some 30 plus years, in retrospect. I used to watch my Muslims, and in Southeast Asia the Muslims are different. They're relaxed, they're easy to get on with. But over the last 30-odd years, since the oil crisis and petrodollars became a major factor in the Muslim world, they've been proselytizing, building mosques, religious schools, madrasas, where they teach Wahhabism, an austere brand of Islam, and sending out preachers and having conferences, globalizing, networking. And slowly they have convinced the Southeast Asian Muslims, and indeed Muslims throughout the world, that the gold standard is Arabia, Saudi Arabia. That is the real good Muslim. And the result is...
But that's not what Osama bin Laden teaches, because he in fact wants to overthrow the regime in Saudi Arabia.
But let me explain why what the Saudis and the other Arab countries did in raising the religiosity, the level of fervor throughout the world, has done for Osama bin Laden. Having worked it up to a fine pitch, and everybody feels, yes, we are closer to God, he then scouts around for the vulnerable, those who feel they need redemption, that they've sinned, they need to redeem themselves, and recruit them to become jihadis. And that's where the world's problems begin. Why have they done this? Well, they say it's because Americans have supported the Israelis, who have been cruel and oppressive to the Palestinians. Partly true. They say the Russians have killed the Chechens. Also true. They say the Serbs killed the Muslims in Bosnia. Also true. That they killed the Albanians, the Kosovos,
the Russians in Afghanistan.
And so on and so on. What we didn't realize, I did not know this at the beginning. I thought we saw this very odd. Until we found that we are enveloped in this same relentless drive to assert Islam's right to supremacy. This particular brand of Islam.
Radical fundamentalists?
Yes, yes. They don't consider all these separate incidents to be disparate events connected with each country. It's every act of cruelty, every atrocity, every massacre of any Muslim anywhere in the world is a crime to all Muslims anywhere in the world. So let us all join together and hit out at those who hit us. And who is the ringleader? America. So let's kill Americans.
Because it's the strongest nation And because it's a close friend of Israel, because its armies have occupied, have been on our soil. I mean, Osama bin Laden was most offended, for example, by the fact that American troops were in his home nation, Saudi Arabia.
But you're now out of it. But he's not satisfied. What he wants is to get hold of the oil of the Gulf states, have Taliban-type regimes. Then he's got all the industrial countries, Christian Europe, America, Japan, China, the lot, by the road. Then they have their Muslim caliphate across the world. Now, what have I done in Singapore to offend him? That he wanted to, he and his affiliates, the JI, Jama'ah Islamiyah in Southeast Asia, were planning 7 huge car bombs of 2 tons of nitrates each. Each one of them twice the size of the Oklahoma City bomb.
In Singapore?
Yes, yes. For December 2001. One for the American embassy, another for the Israeli, the British, the Australians, the American school, the club where the Americans have their sports, an underground railway station where the Americans debus to go to this sports center. 7 of them would have caused enormous damage. What have we done? Nothing. All we've done is to have allowed American aircraft and American ships to use our harbor and our airports. So we are lackeys of the Americans. We deserve to be punished.
So the question is, first, do you think the Iraqi war has aided in the conflict with terrorism and with radical fundamentalists, wherever they come from, or do you think it has served to distract from the primary battle?
It's a bit of both. Suppose you had not attacked Iraq. Would the world be a safer, nicer place? I don't think so.
Well, the argument is not that it would be a safer, nicer place, but that in fact the battle against terrorism might have been more been prosecuted with more focus, and perhaps they would have been able to carry the battle in Afghanistan deeper, and perhaps they would not have given radical fundamentalists a recruiting message more than they had before the war in Iraq began.
Well, that was the view of a terrorist expert who is now based in Singapore.
Who sat at this table with me.
Yeah. How is that?
He came here and talked to me.
Oh, Rohan Gunaratna.
Yes, yes.
Right. Several years ago, just before 9/11, no, after 9/11 and before the Bali bomb, he decided to move from St. Andrews to Singapore. So I read about it in the newspaper, so I said, well,
why is he coming here?
Yes, so I asked to see him. He said because he thinks from all the signs show Southeast Asia will be the next field of operations after Afghanistan, now that they were disrupted. And he said this to me 2 weeks before the Bali bomb went off. I met him again recently. He was against going into Iraq. He said this is a distraction. I wasn't sure. I'm not an expert. So before I left on this journey to Paris and here, I wanted to update myself. I've read all the reports, so I said, what's your take? And he said, well, they have been disrupted in Southeast Asia, but they are multiplying new recruits. The actual perpetrators are being punished, but the people who are producing these jihadis are still going on doing so. So I said, why are there not more terrorist attacks which you thought was coming? He said, because of Iraq. So I said, but you told me Iraq would make things worse. He said, yes, but it's made things better for us because they've concentrated all their energies there. So they have no time for Southeast Asia. Because here's a chance, lots of Americans to be killed. Let's go there. And it's a good training ground. So I said, is that another reason why they've not hit successfully in Europe or America? I said, it could well be. But he said, they're planning something big. They like big, spectacular events.
For the United States or for Europe or for Asia or...
and for Singapore.
And for Singapore.
Yeah.
But what's the argument? You met with Chirac when you were in Paris. What is his argument when you have this conversation with him? Where is Europe in opposition? Clearly there was a difference about the war, but is there a difference about how to fight terrorism?
I can't reach confidences which I share with other leaders, but I'll put it in a general way thus. The Europeans believe, British, French, Germans, even the Italians, Spanish, that if we're going to tackle this terrorist problem and win over the moderates, or not put them on the defensive, we've got to settle the Israeli-Palestinian problem, because as long as that's festering, it's very difficult. The whole thing gets confused.
Okay, but then that raises the question, are you suggesting that they believe, because you visit Israel as well,
yes.
That brings the question that they believe that only the United States can play the kind of role that will, with Israel, that will bring about a solution.
Yes.
And that the United States has to take the lead and exert some real leadership and make sure that there's progress towards that.
Yeah.
And the United States, finally, is not doing it.
Yes.
Right?
So that means they're not going to come on board.
Until the United States takes a more stronger role in settling the Israeli-Palestinian issue.
That's my understanding of their position. And it's a basic position.
Yeah, the British, I think that's Tony Blair's position.
Yes, it's
as well.
also his position.
Right. Let me move to a whole other area of concern, which is, it's not concern, this happens to be economic reality. Prime Minister of India was here.
Yes.
He hopes that his economy will grow at 7 to 8%. That's what he's trying to do and push it. You know him. Believes in the market.
Yes.
China is growing at 8 to 9%. Most people believe that China will replace Japan in 2020 as the second largest economic nation in the world. They may differ with the time, but they see it as an inevitability. Secondly, that India, if it continues to grow at 5 or 6%, 7, in 50 years will be the strongest economic power in the world. We're talking about this century.
Yes.
In the great span of time, 50 years is not a long time. Yeah. Tell me how you see what everybody assumes to be a shift from the West to the East. Power, economic power, and the consequences of having economic power is coming your way.
Yes. Let me put it in even starker terms. In 50 years, China will be at least 5 times the GDP of Japan, just taking the coastal provinces. Ignore the inland provinces. It's got a population of 1.3 at the moment. Japan is 120 million, so it's about 11 times.
1.3 billion plus.
Plus 120 million.
Right.
There's nothing that's going to stop that. They have decided to join the market. Members of the WTO, yes, it's not full observance of intellectual property and all the rest of it, but they're going to go that way because it's in their interests. India, seeing what's happening in China, decides that it's got to change course. 40 years of planning had left them way behind.
They made that decision about 10 years ago.
Made that decision. Manmohan Singh was
Right.
finance minister when he found he had to go to the IMF cap in hand.
Right.
In other words, we are going back to the kind of balance of world productive capacity, say in the 1700s, when China, say just before the Industrial Revolution became full-blown, was the biggest economy in the world, and before America was even properly founded. Sure. Does it mean that we are going back to that period in history? No, because the world has moved on. There's America. There will be a united Europe. But it does mean that the center of economic gravity will move from the Pacific, from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
And what are the consequences of that?
Enormous, enormous, enormous. I mean, the Chinese are in no hurry. You know, there's a talk that they'll be invited to G7 finance ministers and so on. They're not worried whether they're invited or they're not invited. They already know that what they do with the renminbi or the yuan is a matter of great import to the rest of the world.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether their economy temporarily overheats or not, or whether they make temporarily decisions about the economy. There's an inevitability having to do with the population, having to do with some wise decisions about the marketplace and the future, and the fact, I'm making a point, I want you to respond to it, and the fact that they understand the significance of technology and science.
No, I think...
As you did in Singapore.
I visited China in 1976 when there were still blue ants or gray ants. Everybody dressed the same. Everybody gave the same answers in the last days of the Mao era. Even then, talking to them, I had a premonition of their tremendous brain power and the challenge they will pose Singapore.
Let me tell you what you have said, and this was in a speech you made, I think, that the last time you visited China, now, this was not in the 70s, but you were struck by the entrepreneurial zeal, the entrepreneurial zeal of the Chinese, and you wondered if your country, Singapore, had made a mistake because the best and the brightest in Singapore went into government, into the bureaucracy, and therefore you didn't have the same kind of entrepreneurship that made the Chinese so potentially powerful.
Well, yes and no.
So you worry, go ahead.
Well, first we had to get the state going. Supposing we had had a weak government and lots of bright young people running around making money, we would not have cohered as a nation and never have been.
So one had to precede the other.
We had to have, before you can have a country, a society, there must be a sense of common destiny, that we share a certain obligation to each other. Otherwise, everybody for himself. Why should I, if I'm a loser, be part of the game? But once that is established, then I have learned, watching Europe, watching Japan, and watching America, that the robustness of the American economy is its ability to meet unexpected challenges, adapt, downsize, change, revamp, revive, start new industries, and flourish, move ahead.
More than any other economy.
More than any other economy.
That is the strength of the American economy, the ability to adapt to change circumstances.
I did not start off with that view because I was brought up by the British, and I thought a certain stability was necessary. I was wrong. I watched them, and I decided that Margaret Thatcher was doing the right thing, but could not complete the job because she never got the unions around. The Chinese share the same culture as we do. And in that culture, for thousands of years, scholarship was highly prized. So in the hierarchy of things, you have scholar, shi, the Mandarin.
Right.
The farmer, Loong, the worker, Kuan, the merchant, the middleman, Xiao. The middleman is not productive. He's just parasitical. That was the Chinese feudal society. We had that. They still have that. So when you say China is entrepreneurial, I say yes. But the top, the cream of the crop, still goes into government. But they have so many bright people that they can do it.
You once said to me that the person you most admire that you have known in your life was Deng Xiaoping. Because he single-handedly put China on that course.
Yes, because at the age of 70 plus, having been a lifelong communist, he spent just over a week visiting Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore in November of 1978 and saw 3 backward countries
that had turned around,
doing better than China.
I got a lot to talk to you about. So let me go back to Singapore for a moment, without any perfect order. Your son is the new prime minister.
Yes.
The former prime minister is now the senior minister, your old job, and you're the mentor minister or minister of whatever. What's the title, mentor minister?
Yes.
A title you created.
No, a title my son gave me because he wanted to make quite sure that he's the boss. I don't settle policy. I'm just the mentor.
But you know what the conventional wisdom is, with great respect for your son, is that if you feel strongly about an issue, that you have veto power or you have overwhelming power to make an ultimate decision in Singapore. That you have not so come back to some advisory place.
You would be surprised to know just how strong a will he has, otherwise he wouldn't be there. And
now, would he be there if he was not your son, is the question that some ask, with respect for his talent and the fact that he served ably in the military, in political life, was educated, I think at Harvard in part. Where was he?
Cambridge, London, Cambridge, England, and Harvard.
Right. That's
put it simply like this. If he was not up to the job, I would worry for him.
And your country.
Yes. If he were not my son, I would have made him prime minister a long time ago.
Really?
Yes. I held him back.
He's 52 now.
Yes, I held him back. He was young.
Well, you made him prime minister. That says volumes about Singapore.
I could have made him prime minister.
You could have made him your successor.
Yes, I was in charge totally. But I said no, and I said this at a party conference. It is not good for Singapore, and it's not good for him to succeed me. Singapore needs a break from me. And then it'll be able to judge him for what he is worth.
When you look at this process from the time you became prime minister, when you had the freedom from Britain,
yes,
would you look back and do anything significantly different? Were you too rigid? Were you too autocratic? Were you too not respectful of
human rights.
Human rights and criticism.
And the privilege of the individual to order his life the way he wants to.
Yes.
Well, I've done this parlor game
I'm
myself.
sure.
I would say for the first 5 to 10 years of extreme crisis, when the country could just fall apart in racial strife, religious hatreds, and old feuds, without a strong hand, we could have come apart. In those first 10 years, we established certain firm ground rules. I mean, we redeveloped the city. In the process of redevelopment, we broke up all the ghettos and all the enclaves. The Chinese were in one place, the Indians in another place, the Malays in another place. They balloted for their neighbors. So I created a completely different milieu. They went to the same schools. They went to the same shops. There are no ghettos. There's nowhere in Singapore you go and you say, oh, this is a slum. Why are there so many poor people? They're all scattered.
Yeah, but we have a Chinese section here, an Italian section here. And
you don't.
In the city.
No more. No more. You may have it here. We don't have it.
Yeah, just in the city, but I mean, it's a different.
We don't have that.
They all go to the different schools and same schools.
No, but they're all mixed. But where they're differentiated is by income. The higher your income, the better your apartment or your house with a piece of land attached. And of course the standard of living.
If Deng Xiaoping was influenced by his trip in 1978 to Bangkok, Singapore, and where else you said, what were you most influenced by that gave you the insight to make those hard decisions you made at the beginning? Because you now look back and you believe that whatever ought to be the circumstance today, and whatever modification we might make, it was essential to be as tough as we were and as disciplined as we were
to get the
beginning.
mix right.
Right.
To get the mix right.
So where did you learn that?
I learned that by watching what went wrong with Singapore. The constant riots, the sense of deprivation of certain sections of the community, the fact that if you live separately in a hovel in the poorer part of the city and you are a Malay and with weaker jobs, then you sort of feed on each other's misery. And you break out from time to time in anger. So I said, that will not do. It'll ruin us.
And today, what changes you think are necessary? Because I laughed in a previous interview about the bubble gum idea, or chewing gum.
Yes.
You now allow chewing gum of a certain variety to come back.
Yeah.
There's more relaxed attitude about movies
Yes.
in Singapore. There have been other changes.
Yeah.
Are you approving of this?
I think the world changes.
Those are
the people
certain
of,
kinds of examples of which there are more fundamental changes.
The people of Singapore have become much more traveled. They're more tolerant of quirks of other people. We have 7 million tourists a year, almost twice the population of Singapore. 60% of Singapore travel by air every year to foreign places. So we are a very much traveled and very cosmopolitan sort of place.
But here's what you're preaching. Go ahead. But you are preaching the following thing, as far as I can tell, which is that
China is coming on strong with a very high growth rate. So is India. Singapore is in between.
But if Singapore is to maintain its place and maintain it's got to be very tough, very competitive, and it's got to reassess.
Let me put it in a broader framework. In China, and to a lesser extent in India, we have such an enormous land mass with such massive populations and high quality that if they had joined the free trade world right from the beginning after the war, Hong Kong and Singapore may never have been economic miracles. Places like Hong Kong and Singapore on the periphery of this huge landmass became places of excellence because we arbitraged on their inefficiencies. We became their contact points with the outside world.
You were an attractive alternative to their
That's
inefficiencies.
Right. Now they have decided they're going to do likewise.
So it's going to be a different ballgame for you in Hong Kong.
Now, in 50 years, they're going to be 5 times Japan. Not with the same technology, they'll still be way behind, and maybe in 100 years they'll equal Japan's technology. But they'll be pretty high up. Then they, like the Japanese, will be investing in Singapore and through Singapore into the region. So the roles are reversed.
Why is that?
Because they will never be able to find a better place in the region than Singapore to launch their enterprises.
Yeah, but the projection of your own growth rate is 4 to 5% over the next several years.
No.
I mean, you're sort of, but you think you'll be sort of you'll ride on the Japanese, I mean, on the Chinese,
yes, of course,
and the Indian economies.
These are 2 huge locomotives.
And you're there for the ride.
Not just Singapore. We are at the center of Southeast Asia, but the whole of Southeast Asia will be lifted up.
Should America fear this shift from west to east, this rise of China and India?
I think fear would be the wrong reaction. Here is an opportunity for you to take advantage of your long connections with the region and your high technology, your patents,
values,
values and your products.
Democracy?
No,
I know. I say what. Yeah, sorry.
They would want to buy all the things you have,
right?
But they would not like you to order them how to lead their lives.
And they don't want to. They want to say that it may work for you, but that's not the model we may or may not choose.
Yeah, but I have a feeling that they are changing anyway. Whether we like it or not, they know they have to change.
Politically?
Yes. Because today, as against 1976 when I first went there, they are more urban than rural. When I went there, they were about 20% urban, 80% rural. Now they are about 25% to 30% urban and 70% rural. In another 20 years, they're going to be about 50% urban. And as you become urbanized, you're on the internet, you're on cable TV, you're well informed, you've got to govern them differently.
Yeah, exactly. Now, is Singapore, in your judgment, the model city of the future? Not Singapore, I'm sorry, Shanghai.
Shanghai, model city of the future. Shanghai as
modern, contemporary,
avant-garde in culture and
economics, lifestyle.
Maybe, but in political styles, no, because that's set in Beijing. Beijing cannot afford.
Okay, the power's in Beijing.
Yes.
But look, in America, the power's in Washington, but also New York is the greatest city in the world.
You are differently constituted. You're differently constituted.
If you were 20 today, it's hard to make this work, but so you're a young man of 20 in Singapore, what would you do? Where would you go? Would you move to China and create businesses? Would you go into politics in Singapore?
Probably not, because there are so many opportunities to do well in life. And that's the problem for Singapore.
Choice.
The ample choice. What would I do? I'd want a good education in English, because that's a world language. I'd want to have enough Chinese, not just language, but an understanding of their politics and culture to interact with them, because I think they're going to be the biggest growth story of the 21st century.
So if, in fact, you're a smart young man at 20, your second language ought to be a command, at least, a conversational command of Mandarin.
Yes, absolutely.
In America, we say if you were wise, your second language ought to be Spanish. politically.
Yeah, politically, but I mean, how
but
does
saying on a global basis,
Yeah.
Mandarin.
Yeah.
But English is first.
Yes.
Because the English is...
It's worldwide. It's worldwide. And it's that for a long time, it'll be the key to new knowledge.
Did you tell Jacques Chirac that?
I don't have to tell him. He knows it.
All right, so you're 20.
Yeah.
You would look at something other than, I mean, would you move to China?
No, not just yet. I would have a base in Singapore. I'd build some company. I'd go to China. I'd go into the region. I come to Europe. I come to America.
You'd live in Singapore. Singapore would be your base. Oh, no, you'd start off in Singapore.
I would start off in Singapore. My base will be in Singapore. I'll bring my family up in Singapore.
Yes.
But I think they'll grow up with what I would call orthodox old world values to begin with, before they get beaten up by all these new lifestyles and so on.
Would you send your children, when they came of age, to, as your son went to Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard?
Yes, I would.
Because a quality education is the best thing that you can get. Now, we make the point here that you can get quality education in a lot of other places than those three universities, for sure.
Yeah.
And some would believe in different places better.
Yeah. I would say more than that. I think for the next 50, 100 years, the most dynamic economy in the world is America.
For the next 50 years.
50 or 100 years.
Yeah. So this century is still going to be the American century?
For economics, definitely.
Yeah. And military power?
Absolutely. Technological power.
Then what should, I'm changing this, what should we worry about? What ought to be, beyond terrorism and the fact that people wish us badly?
Yeah.
And want to destroy
some people wish us badly.
Some. I remember some. We'll come back to this anti-American in a second. But what should be the primary concern of American leaders looking to the future, beyond terrorism?
I would say to try and get the world not just to envy you, which they do, your wealth, your dynamism.
But that's admiration for our power.
Yes, no, more than that, your lifestyle, your abundance, your affluence,
our culture,
your ability to have a good life.
Yeah, but I mean, they also admire our movies and our dress and things like that.
I think more important to try and be less apprehensive.
Really?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, many parts of the world, many people say, look, they're overwhelming us.
They, the Americans?
Yes.
That used to be the rallying cry against globalization. Yeah. Globalization is another word for American hegemony.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's your pop culture.
Right, right.
So I think that's not difficult. Your fast foods, you know all about this Big Mac and how the obesity and all that.
Right, I do.
And your cigarette companies, all those things give you a bad name with thinking people, and
so importing bad food and
exporting problems for people.
Drugs, so to speak. Addiction.
Yeah, but I think what is important is that if you really want to sort of have the icing on the cake,
don't be apprehensive.
Don't be apprehensive of American power and preeminence. We are friendly. We are not out to kill your culture. We are prepared to live and let live.
Yeah, let me add something to that, and then just to test it. And we want to engage you and listen to you and hear or not. Do you think that in your judgment, being the experience you've had, do you believe that the idea of saying, as George Bush said in the campaign in 2000, but didn't many criticize him because they didn't follow through, to adapt a more humbler attitude? Do you think that the United States today, in terms of future leadership of the world, has got to be more aware of an engagement with the rest of the world, and and be sensitive to their apprehension.
Yes. But I put it in another way. You have a lifestyle that's causing everybody to wonder how long we can protect the environment if we all aspire to your lifestyle.
Right.
So you got to try and
Be more.
move the paradigm. You know that from time to time there's going to be real ratcheting up of oil prices.
It's approaching $50 as we speak.
And, you know, coming to see all these huge automobiles and SUVs in America, there's a complete unconcern with the rest of the world.
The amount of energy consumption that our lifestyle and our wealth enables us to.
Because if you start cutting down, it will make a significant impact worldwide.
Okay, a lot of smart friends of mine are arguing that that American leadership ought to be in the forefront of energy independence and energy alternatives. Now, some of the people I know in the oil business will tell you that's not likely to happen, not so much because they're trying to sell their product, but simply that, you know, it's not going to happen.
Well, you look at the Japanese.
They import everything.
They import everything. And when the oil crisis struck, in every single way, they minimized consumption. And it made a difference to the economy. So today, per unit produced, they use less energy than America.
In your region, what's the likelihood that China and South Korea and Japan and are all going to be at each other's throat? That they are going to be, there's going to be such rivalry among them and such competition among them?
No. I don't see that for 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know what it's going to be once China is already big and powerful. The Chinese mode at the moment is, let's grow. Let's have peace, quiet, and grow. Let's get there first and talk about other things later. And they require
but you see, they want to play a role, I mean, a significant role. I mean, they want respect.
Yeah.
They've always wanted respect, but they want respect more so today. They want to be they have to be a critical player in trying to deal with North Korea. Have to be. Friends, it's in their neighborhood. And the fear of atomic weapons of mass destruction in the hands of someone who might not be.
But you also have to look at it from the North Korean point of view. The North Koreans have decided that the Chinese put their interests first. Because when it became obvious to the Chinese that the South Koreans could bring benefits, they then made friends with the South. So the North no longer believe that this fellow communist is their perpetual friend.
Right, right. Well, the South doesn't believe that, and there's some sense that the South does not fear North Korea as much as America fears North Korea.
No, that's a different story.
I know.
But at the same time, without China, the North Koreans may well have starved to death. The Chinese have helped them to survive because they don't want them to implode. If they implode, the South takes over, you have a pro-American Korea.
Yeah.
And that brings American troops up to the Yalu River. So what they want is a North Korea still extant, but without the bomb. But why should the North Koreans listen to Chinese guarantees and give up the bomb? That's a problem.
Well, there's a bigger problem too, is that the world watches North Korea with a bomb, and they says, gee, you know, if you get a bomb, you win the world's respect. They're all trying to deal with you. I mean,
yes. I put it more crudely.
All right.
They know that if they collapse, Kim Jong-il and quite a number of his generals will be in the dock where Milosevic now is for war crimes, crimes against humanity. They blew up a Korean airliner. They killed half the Korean cabinet in Rangoon with a bomb, and they'll end up in The Hague.
So how do you see it ending?
So they keep the bomb.
They keep the bomb.
Yes.
How would you... Last night I had the foreign minister of Iran here.
Yes.
For a long conversation.
Yeah.
Says that they're ready to be engaged about the bomb, that they don't really want the bomb. You don't believe that, do you? They're willing.
It would be impolite for me to express my disbelief, but I think anybody who says he doesn't want a bomb, if he can get one, isn't really being honest.
Because?
Because the Pakistanis have the bomb, so why not they? The Israelis have a bomb, why not they? And Saddam Hussein nearly got the bomb.
Pre-95.
Yeah, so why not they? Of course, they'd rather...
Pre-90.
Yeah. No, it's a dangerous world, that's that.
What do you think the likelihood is that a bomb will fall in the wrong hands and it'll be set off?
I once wrote a fantasy piece for The Economist. They asked me, there was some 150th anniversary or whatever, 50 years from now. So I had one little paragraph in which I said, and finally the bomb was used, and it was in the Middle East. Because in a conflict between Israelis and Arabs and Muslims, rationality dissolves.
And fear takes over.
Yes. But they didn't publish that. They decided it was too provocative. They canceled it. But I still believe that's the highest risk. North Koreans will sell the bomb or parts of it. They won't use it because they know that's the end of them.
So they want the fear that they have it,
yes,
rather than the fact that
yes. But they will sell it.
Because it gives them money.
Yeah, they're broke.
Currency.
They're broke.
They're currency. Much has been said about America's reputation as a result of the Iraqi war.
Oh.
And that if, in fact, there was a need for preemptive action at some point because of Iraq, America, the respect for America, the willing to follow America, is less likely. Is it that severe?
These are hypothetical questions, and no benefit can come out of this kind of speculative questions and answers. You are in Iraq, and if you do not handle Iraq in a way that does not make people despise you, then you've got real worries. Not whether they're going to follow you in the next preemptive action. You handle Iraq and come out of Iraq in one piece, you may not achieve what you set out to achieve, a functioning democracy in Iraq, but at least you leave it more stable than it was, in better shape than it was. May take you some time. I think you will overcome it as you overcame Vietnam, and Vietnam was a messy business at, 50,000 deaths and 150,000 casualties. One of the strange things about America is this obsession with casualties, which again makes the world feel that only American lives are important. Casualties have crossed the 1,000 mark, so it's a disaster. Tens of thousands of Iraqis have died. They're killing each other and they'll continue to kill each other. I think you have to look at it in the long term. All this will be forgotten. But how did you, at the end of the day, hold your head up and said, I came to do good and I did good. You did not go as conquerors, but alas, for various reasons, you didn't get the blessings of the UN. Otherwise, it would have been much easier. And you had to carry the burden of being an occupying force. You go through with this, leave it in better shape, and you'll still be a leader of the world.
There's also this lesson, whether it's Singapore or China or Vietnam or Iraq, you have to learn from history,
yes,
or you will repeat it.
Yeah. But you are what you are, right?
The most powerful country
In
economics and politics and cultural.
In October of 2002, I was in London, and I met the advisor to the British Prime Minister. They facilitated me because we were also interested in Iraq. So I discussed what were the options and what were the chances. And victory over Saddam's forces was assured. Now the worries were what happens after that. And I had read excerpts of what happened with the British in the 1920s. They had 250,000 British Indian troops, and they suffered many casualties, over 20,000 casualties. So I asked this advisor, I said, this is your history. If you were in charge, what would you do? He said, I'd go in and get rid of Saddam, get the strongest man who can hold the country together, and get out. But Americans cannot do that. They go in with noble, high-minded objectives to bring democracy, to change the nature of the society. That's not easy, and that's a long-term goal. And the question is, have Americans a patience for that?
Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. Pleasure to have you here. I hope you'll come back.
And we are still friends with America.
Yes, indeed. Lee Kuan Yew, as I said, is the mentor minister of Singapore. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.